So, Christoph, how do we not go broke?
So, well, we are in the money cycle here at Euzoia. And most people, when they think of money, they're like, how can I make as much as possible? But the much more important thing is actually figuring out how do I not lose everything, right? Because you might have heard that there is this thing of like this logarithmic relationship to happiness with money. So if you double your money, you only get like a tiny bit happier. But if you just lose it all, you'll be like miserable, right? Like, so the much more important thing to solve here is kind of preventing going broke and ending up in the streets. And this also, like, there's this related psychological concept called loss aversion, where, like, if I give you 100 euros, you're going to be like, I don't know, somewhat happy about this. But if I then take it away again, you're going to be like much more upset than would be justified by like how happy you were in the first time, right? Like, so we really don't like losing stuff. So just take that as a given. I think it's very, very hard to override those instincts. And then let's see, like, how can you avoid losing all your money, and ending up in the streets? And basically, it all revolves around managing risk. Right? Like, we kind of tend to plan for like if things go well, right? Like at least I always plan for like the happy path when I do planning, and then like things take longer and nothing works as I expected, and you kind of have to figure it out on the way. But for your finances, that's a really bad idea, right? Like if you plan for the happy path, if all goes well, and then your car breaks down, or you, I don't know, get like a hurricane hitting your house, or like things that happen, right? Like all of a sudden you have a problem. You can separate those risks into two, basically. Like one is stuff you should be able to manage by yourself, and then the second is like things that are just so big you can never manage by yourself. For the first bucket that you can manage by yourself, there's a very simple rule, and that is just like build a buffer, right? Like, I think I looked up the stats. Half of Americans have less than $1,000 in buffer, I think. And like actually Europe is similar, right? Like maybe it's a bit better, but like not much. And that means you would have to go into debt to finance when your car breaks down, or like smaller other things. If a friend asks you for a loan, if like I don't know what, if you have to go to the ER, and you generally don't want that, right? Because going into debt kind of puts you on this like spiral of then having to pay off like the super high interest for these short-term debts, and this like pushes you into more debt and so on and so forth and so forth. So the aim really is to build a buffer. Now, how do you build a buffer? It's like you've heard this before, maybe. Number one, pay off your credit card. And number two, just before making any purchases, build a buffer. I think the guide is to buffer like around 3 months of salary. This might seem like a lot. I think this really depends on also like which social security system you live in. So like it's always worth figuring out like what would you be covered for. If I lose my job as somebody living in the Netherlands, then there's like social security, and like I'll get money, and like I'll be fine. If this happens to me, I actually don't know how the system in the United States work, but like my prejudice somehow is that like it's gonna be like less cushy, let's just say.
Yeah.
So yeah, the length of your buffer super depends on the country you're in, right? So like look it up, but then as much as this hurts, it really should be first priority to build that buffer before doing anything that is like more risky investments, like lifestyle consumption that like aren't really relevant to your life right now. And of course, some people just can't do this, right? Because like you have to just pay the bills to get by. Then like don't stress about now also paying like building a buffer, right? But it should be kind of the first thing on the list before trying to invest or trying to like buy stuff just for pleasure. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That makes sense. I feel like I'm taking this all in. Good advice from me as well. And yeah, maybe I'm curious, what are the biggest risks aside from, I guess, like losing your job, or are there other things that it's worth thinking about on this one?
I think the things that usually come up is something that you own and that's essential for your life breaking down. But like this could be your washing machine. I think it's often the car. It's often some kind of medical situation. For people where maybe your relatives don't live in the same country, if somebody falls sick there and you kind of have to like fly over on like a short notice, then I think those are probably the biggest ones. And then of course, like, those are the ones you usually should cover yourself. But if we think about risks, there's also the other part that's can be so massive that you can't cover it by yourself. Like I had an uncle who was flying on holiday to like south of France, and he made some pasta on this like little pasta stove. He was camping in a forest. It was all cozy. And then some wind came, set the forest on fire. And like they literally kind of had to
Oh my
get these
God.
like planes that put water on the forest and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, he had a liability insurance, and the liability insurance just paid for it. But if he wouldn't have had a
Mm,
liability insurance, this would have ended differently, right? And this is not something you can build a buffer
mhm.
for. So yeah, for
Yeah.
anything you can build a buffer for, get an insurance, right? This would be health insurance. Most people have that anyway. I think a guide there is to focus on actually get a high deductible. So like you pay a lot out of pocket when it comes to like small stuff that you can cover yourself, but then have a high cover for like stuff when it kind of goes into really high costs for an inpatient cover, right? Like when
Mm,
you have to stay in hospital for a longer time, like I don't know, cancer treatments like these, but big, you want to be covered for those. Whereas like if your health insurance is going to like pay for your therapy or for your physio or like all the stuff that you could in principle also pay for yourself, the usual advice is just don't get insurance for that and pay for it yourself if you have to. That kind of reduces the cover quite a bit. Then yeah, liability insurance
mhm.
in case you set up forest on fire or break something, cause an accident with the car. You have to have like mandatory liability insurance. The important thing there is to make sure that you actually have a cover that's higher than what's prescribed by the state. Often these covers are quite
Yeah.
low, but then when you crash into like an expensive car, you're still not covered. So, so you want to make sure that like this is
Mm,
quite high actually. And then let me just look which other insurances I wrote down. So life insurance is one of them, right? If you have dependents that depend on your income, then you kind of want to make sure that they can kind of keep the lifestyle they have right now if you pass. The important thing about a life insurance is that these can get super expensive. And like salespeople love to sell you that stuff. Probably you want something called a term insurance, where you basically insure yourself for like the next 20 years or something. And if something happens after, you're not covered. This makes sense if you can build up through savings, through investing, the buffer in these 20 years that then cover you afterwards, right? Like you kind of get a low premium and because you're unlikely to die when you're young. And then when you're old, you already have savings. And that seems to be the best way of doing it, but like do your own research, of course. Another one is disability insurance. I think less people get disability insurance than they get life insurance,
mm,
but you're actually much more likely to use your ability to work than you are to just pass all of a sudden. So that might actually make more sense to get. And when getting disability insurance, it's important to have a clause that you are getting insurance for the type of work you did when you couldn't do it anymore. Otherwise, they can just force you to do any kind of other work that you might not want to do. And then the last one is home insurance. I think
mhm.
those often are mandatory. I'm not sure, but basically, like if a hurricane hits or if you have like water damage, if you did listen to our advice and didn't get a fire alarm, like these kind of things, then
Yeah.
it also makes sure that you're still covered. Yeah, this was like a lot of insurance. Being a German who lives in the
Mhm.
Netherlands, I'm very passionate about insurance. I also worked in health insurance before. I just think it's often something that's not much talked about. And because the risks
Yeah.
are low, right? Like people often put it on the back burner of like, yeah, sure, I'll do it one day.
Mhm.
But yeah, these
Yeah.
risks you just cannot cover yourself. Right? And often with health insurance in countries where it's not mandatory,
Mhm.
people get it, people don't get it, then they get sick, then they have to like borrow money from like all kinds of friends and
Yeah.
family and everywhere, and then they're in debt for the rest of their lives just to pay off kind
No.
of their
Mm,
health debt. So
mm,
yeah, get some insurance. Don't get insurance for stuff that you can cover yourself, right? Like so, like this like car deductible when you rent a
mhm.
car, or like the travel insurance when you kind of go on a plane and like might get sick and don't need the plane
Mhm.
anymore. Like usually those are all like not needed and kind of pry on your worry that something
Mhm.
goes wrong. But like you can cover most of these yourself, so these are very unnecessary. Are you
Yeah,
as
yeah,
passionate as
that
I am
makes
about
sense. Yeah, I
insurance?
think it's an interesting maybe not quite. I do think it's an interesting one because it does feel like certain places and countries have, like, for example, welfare or they don't have it. So depending on where you are, it might make more sense to get certain types of insurance. And like you said, like if you have this buffer or even if you have people who can support you as opposed to not, like, I think it makes a difference in terms of like what you should do and how much risk you should take. So yeah, interesting topic.
Yeah, and I think a simple thing like this might feel like a bit overwhelming, but like one place to get started is just figure out which insurances you already
Mm,
have, put them into Claude, and have a short conversation if you should get something else. But like it doesn't have to be this daunting thing, but I
mhm.
do think it allows you to sleep better at night when you have like a few things less to worry about.
Yeah.
Speaking of things to worry about, there's one last area how you can end up in the streets. And this is like these kind of one-off risks that you can't really insure for. Well, there's of course a big one, which is like you gamble away your money in like all kind of ways, and then it's gone. We'll cover that next week when we talk about how to make money without gambling it all away. The other ones, I think one is you get divorced and you didn't get a proper prenup before. So this is quite complex, right? It kind of depends on like if you live in different states or like come from different countries. Like it's super specific. Like if you're asset heavy, it can be super complex. So again, this is not financial advice. I'm not a lawyer, but there is good general advice to get a prenup if you get married. So just remember that something that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger is scams and identity theft. Actually, like with AI, scams are getting so much more sophisticated, right? You can like pretend to be anybody with anybody's voice. I had a conversation with my mom about this a few days ago where it's like, if I call you and want money from you, please don't wire the money, right? Like, so, but of course there might be the case where I do need the money and want to call my mom. So like, how do you actually make sure it works in those cases and not in others? The best practice, I think, is if something like this happens, always validate on multiple channels. So like if somebody's calling you, like try to like verify this by also doing email or like having a safe word or also doing SMS. Usually it's not very urgent, right? Wait some time, talk with somebody about this. But yeah, it happens. I know somebody who got scammed exactly this way and lost a lot of money. Identity theft is, I think, less common, at least in Europe. Like, I'm not sure. I haven't heard of many people, but seems to be more common in the States. Not sure. But the thing you want to do there, basically, in the States, you can actually put I think, what's it called? Like some kind of freeze on your credit. So actually, it's impossible for people to get credit cards on your name or like go in debt on your name unless you unfreeze. In Europe, I don't think that's possible. So you can kind of try to put limits on your bank accounts and stuff. And the last thing is, and this is a difficult one, like loaning money to friends. This can be like simple loans, but this can also be like co-signing a lease because maybe, or co-signing a mortgage because they don't have the money right now but they want to buy a house, and like all these things where like you believe in them and it's like also an emotional decision. And I of course don't want to say you shouldn't loan money to your friends, but it's good to like really think those things through. Yeah, just have some kind of guidance for yourself there. Yeah. Makes sense?
Great. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, lots to think about there. I think, like you said, the downside risks more important than the upside ones. So definitely worth considering and setting these things up. I think a lot of these things is like one and done, right? You do your insurance, set it up, you forget about it.
Also,
Worth
like
investing
setting up a
the
buffer.
30 minutes, 1 hour. Use AI to help you.
Yeah. Best way to set up a buffer, that's for the thing from the beginning, is just have an automatic thing that just takes money away from your income as it comes in and puts it into some kind of savings account. Yeah. Have a conversation with your parents about AI and how they can scam you. Like, it all doesn't take very long. Just like sit down, do it once, and then you can sleep a bit better.
Yeah. There was that. I think there was a CFO who sent like millions from a deep fake call with. They had like 4 of his colleagues. This is obviously a very sophisticated scam, but that's just one example.
Yeah, I've seen actually a company where that happened, where they.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Sorry, I think we have a bit of a delay. No, I was just saying I've seen a company where this happened, where they, I think, got through somebody's email through some kind of phishing attack, and then used that email to send emails to the CEO to like, you now have to like super urgent allow some money transfer to go through, and they caught it. But it's it can go quite sophisticated.
Yeah. Worth thinking about. I mean, with AI now and tech, it's like, unfortunately, scammers also getting the development of this. So worth thinking about. Yeah. Okay, amazing. Anything more on risks? I think that was enough doom for one day, and next week it's going to be all growth and how to make money. So that's going to be more exciting. Okay, amazing. Well, thanks so much for listening or watching. This has been Euzoia, and yes, we'll be back next week with some more information on money. See you next week.